This video will convince you to watch or read Jujutsu Kaisen. Jujutsu Kaisen is the new big thing, everyone loves it. But people love some pretty bad shows sometimes, so I'm here to clarify that this one is actually worth the hype. Jujutsu Kaisen is a shonen battle series that started in 2018 and with just over 200 chapters looks to be continuing for some time. With an amazing anime adaptation that some mangakas would sell their both nuts for, Jujutsu Kaisen is an absolute treat for the eyes. Its main focuses are fighting, mysteries, and honestly some pretty top tier comedy as well. The premise is pretty similar to Bleach. In this world, curses are born from people's negative emotions and eventually take the form of conscious beings that cause tons of deaths worldwide. To combat these curses, there's a group of secret elites with spiritual powers who dedicate their lives to hunting said monsters, and that's right, they are known as the Shinigami. The Jujutsu sorcerers. However, their ranks have been corrupted over the years, so they are almost more busy killing each other now. Our main character Itadori Yuji is just a normal high school kid who can casually break world records by a large margin and who has no idea this invisible world exists. Of course, until he's thrown right in the middle of it completely unprepared by picking up an extremely powerful cursed object by accident. Through a series of events, he of course ends up eating the finger, and that's right, the finger, to survive and becoming possessed, gaining cursed energy and also having Sukuna reincarnate inside him similarly to Kurama from Naruto. Because of this, he is almost executed as he is now a huge threat and forced into Jujutsu High, which is a school that's actually just a front to train kids into being Jujutsu sorcerers. From here, he is forced to learn the basics and start hunting for more fingers of Sukuna. He needs to go on extremely dangerous missions with his classmates to recover these fingers and also to defend people in general, but it's not that easy. Many factions that are way out of his level want to use him or get rid of him because of Sukuna's status and his own uniqueness. And on these missions he's often very outclassed, so they end up being extremely dangerous for him. There are also some times when he gets to catch a breath, but conflicts are the main focus. And now I want to get into the strengths of this series. So starting with the obvious, the animation. Most of you have probably seen clips from this show. Its movie quality and the art in the manga is actually comparably good, unlike in Demon Slayer. The author is named Gege Akutami, and he is very skilled in making action flow from page to page, and because of that the fights are a treat in both formats. The anime itself is handled by MAPPA Studios, with the same love and care you would give your own child, if probably not even more. The voice acting, pacing, flow, shading and the animation itself are all amazing. The best anime industry has to offer in my opinion, but it comes at the cost of their poor employees. Now moving into the characters. The characters contrast and complement each other very well, and with very strong personalities to clash together, making for some top tier comedy in the show that otherwise would be kind of depressing. Starting with the four main characters. Itadori Yuji is not your standard shonen idiot you would expect. He's actually fairly intelligent, though still straightforward. His straightforwardness comes from his desire to help others. He is an empathetic guy who, after some motivation from his grandpa's last moments, decided to dedicate his life to help people and allow them to have proper deaths, even to a point of naivete that gets him into unnecessary trouble. That might sound super generic, but because of the way the world is, Yuji has to sometimes go against his ideals and compromise, making it fascinating to watch. On this topic he heavily disagrees with Megumi, who is more of a realist that believes some people don't deserve to be saved. His fighting style reflects his simple personality, as he does not have a cursed technique of his own, relying solely on his bizarrely superhuman physical abilities in combat, though it's said he'll eventually develop one. Yuji is currently on death row and will be executed after he consumes all 20 of Sukuna's fingers to finally rid the world of his curse, and due to that, there's an evil entity inside him trying to take control for his own unknown and probably really evil reasons. Megumi, the Dragonist, is a reserved type of a guy. He's not going to tell exactly what he likes and what he wants to do, making him outwardly quite boring. That also extends to fights. While he's very skilled and has trained hard, he is constantly holding back his emotions, and because of the nature of the power system, his actual fighting potential is held back too. He was born to a father that seemingly didn't care about him, so he was raised by his mother and Satoru Gojo instead, making him a very distant person, though that's just as hell he's put up. Even though he believes some people aren't worth saving, he's still a selfless person in the end, and is willing to warm up for the sake of his Yuji and to die for the purpose of furthering someone else's goal. And actually, he's ready to sacrifice himself insanely often. His ability also reflects his personality. He hides in the shadows and uses them to fight with him. And on a side note, this ability is one of the best ones I've seen in anime. He has 10 different familiars he has subjugated, and he can summon 2 of them at a time to attack his opponents. If they get destroyed, they are gone forever, so he has to choose which one will be useful, making for very dynamic and suspenseful fights. Nobara at first glance seems like the typical anime love interest that's third-wheeled for the rival and that punches the main character every 5 minutes for no good reason, but she's not that at all. I read a joke saying she's her own love interest, and I think that pretty much fits. She's how a strong female character should be. A character first, female second. The reason she became a Jujutsu sorcerer is for herself, not others. She hated the stuffy little village and wanted to live in the city, and in the end, do you really need a more grandiose reason? She wants to become someone strong that's free to do what they want, how they want, while being pretty, and she's determined to not let anyone change that. In fact, she's so ridiculously stubborn that she doesn't really mind dying as long as she can give her enemy the middle finger in the process. She's a lot like a standard shonen main character when it comes to solving emotions. She doesn't hide much and has a very vibrant personality as opposed to the sheer objects some other female characters are, and likewise she's very self-centered. Her unusual personality can be seen in her technique too. She violently rams needles into her enemies to make them explode, and that is not exactly the most girly or cute fighting style out there. Yuji, Megumi, and Nobara have an unusually healthy relationship as they share their ideas and discuss their beliefs with each other, without any plans to betray the Leaf Village in the mix. And last but not least, their teacher Gojo. He completes the Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura and Kakashi squad perfectly, though the similarities are only superficial. Alongside Sukuna, he is the peak of power in the entire world, and even the strongest antagonists can't hold a candle to him in a fight. Their only chance of victory is if they seal him first. He was born a genius with the combination of 2 insanely powerful abilities, and is powerful to a point that when he was born, every curse in the world suddenly started getting stronger as a reaction. Because of that strength, everyone else in his life has been distant, except for one person. The problem is that person turned evil and got killed. So now Gojo feels insanely alone at the top, suffering from success with his feelings hidden behind his cheerful persona. He has only one exploitable weakness. He can't be in multiple places at once, and this has been used against him many times. Because of that, he has a simple goal. He wants to reform the Jutsu society from the ground up and train the next generation so that they can hold their own and even surpass him, which sounds like a really tall task. His technique also fits really well. There's an infinite distance between himself and others that can stop whatever he wants from approaching. And also he can throw black holes at his enemies. Fortunately, JJK's villains are not lacking either. I will now go over 3 major villains, but there are many more that are equally interesting. Sukuna is the evil entity locked inside Yuji, trying to make his schemes without even a body to move around. In the past, he used to be known as the King of Curses until he was finally defeated by the combined forces of everyone. There probably isn't one nice thought in his head, just pure carnage. Even though he's evil to the core, that doesn't mean that he doesn't have a personality or goals. He's self-indulgent, but still scheming and smart. He toys with others for his entertainment and to pass the time, but he's ready to give them their props when they deserve it. He considers humans as ants, but he doesn't go out of his way to murder millions. Why would he bother? The main reason he tries to kill everyone any chance he gets is just to mess with Yuji. He's just that much of a hater. He also currently happens to be holding a massive card against Yuji. He can take over his body for 1 minute whenever he wants, and the thought of that is honestly completely terrifying. Mahito is a less calculated evil. He is true evil. He embodies the fear of humanity, our self-indulgence and hatred. As such, he believes he should follow every primal desire he has at any time and does not give a crap about anyone else. He's an extremely good representation of a true sociopath in anime. While Sukuna is extremely bad, he has these standards and isn't really straight up bloodthirsty. Mahito, on the other hand, makes humans his playthings and doesn't even care about his allies. He thinks life doesn't matter, but when it comes down to it, he tries to run desperately. He's a cowardly, manipulative, deadly child. When he was originally introduced, he reminded me a lot of Shigaraki because of his appearance and because he grows alongside the protagonist. His personality is quite jovial though, and he looks human so he can fool people into thinking he's not like the others, when in reality he is by far the worst. The other intelligent curses have grand ideals they are ready to sacrifice themselves for, when Mahito just wants to murder people in peace. He wants to prove himself as the purest curse, even though he can't even understand his comrades. Kensaku is an Aizen-like evil mastermind, who's planned out many moves ahead thanks to his life that has lasted for over 1,000 years, and most events in the story have been manipulated by him to suit his goals. His goal being the evolution of humanity, and he's been collecting puzzle pieces together for ages to make that come true. He's still a really big mystery, so that's all I can really say, but he's honestly less indiscriminate evil and more neutral. He doesn't care as long as you don't get in his way, and he doesn't sit there dreaming of murdering humanity or something. He wants us to reach a new peak of evolution. The little side effect will just be billions dying in the process. He's a schemer that gets others to fight his battles for him, and that's probably why he's body-checked a sorcerer whose ability it is to control curses. Now these are just the most integral characters, but there are many others that I want you to meet and figure out. My personal favorites being Maki, Choso, and Todo. To describe Jujutsu sorcery more, these sorcerers usually have a cursed technique that they inherited that allows them to do some pretty standard things, like stop people from approaching certain points based on star constellations. This leads me to the story's biggest strength, the fights themselves. They are a breath of fresh air, with creative choreography and abilities you probably haven't seen before, used in pretty unorthodox ways. And believe me, the stakes are actually real in this show. It's extremely bloodthirsty when it comes to deaths. No one is safe, okay? This is reflected in the abilities themselves too. They are very lethal. One good touch from Mahito and you turn into a rejected Plushie design. The power system is like a combination of Bleach, Hunter x Hunter and JoJo's. The powers are extremely wacky sometimes, and they are used in many smart ways that usually involve a chess match of wits alongside the physical beatdowns. The more emotional you are, the stronger your abilities become. But if you're careless, you will run out of cursed energy because you're blowing a gasket. You have to control your emotions to succeed. Usually the abilities also get stronger if you tell your opponent their effect, which is a really effective meta way to make telling your ability to the enemy a smart choice. Generally, people only have one type of sorcery and all of their abilities derive from that. Though cursed tools exist also as a way to diversify your arsenal. The peak of sorcery are domain expansions. You create a mini arena where your technique becomes stronger and hits your opponents 100% guaranteed, or forces them to follow a set of rules that gives you an advantage. But to stop them from being too OP and making fights pointless, they have many weaknesses. There are ways to counteract them, like putting a second domain in the area, forming a simple domain to become immune to the sure hit attack, or in some cases simply escaping the area. They also take a lot of energy, so a domain can't be used only once or twice a day and can't be spammed as an instant win ability. And since sorcerers that can't use domain expansion are at a clear disadvantage, they usually develop ways to counter the domains instead. Domain expansion is the reason why I said the system is a bit like in Bleach. Characters have their normal abilities and abilities that are similar but amplified. Domain expansions are the reason why I said the system is a bit like in Bleach. Characters have their normal abilities and abilities that are similar but amplified and usually kind of different in the domain. Another strength of JJK is for sure the comedy. Even though the topics are very real and honestly just depressing at times, the show never stops being funny, and a big part of that is how much personality the characters have. There is no need to rely on cheap tricks like, oh no, I accidentally fell in between the girl's massive honkers and groped her, when your characters can just talk about something funny and their contrasting personalities just naturally make it work. As the series is getting longer and is clearly not close to the end, another strength is starting to show itself too. This series does not have many plot holes. It's very well laid out and it's clear Gege Akutami is sticking to the plan from the start. He's seen previous greats like Bleach and Naruto end up falling short in the end because they weren't planned well enough from the beginning and started running into plot holes too often at the end. With the Shibuya arc, for example, it's clear to see everything was building up to it and we were given many hints about the plan. This was clearly not made up on the fly. This show has stuff for absolutely everyone. The fangirls get absolute studs to draw at. The fanboys get to argue about how strong their favorite character is with their tons of unique and really complex abilities. The plot nerds get to watch a beautiful showcase of foreshadowing unfold, and all of it is happening with the best animation you can find in our times. This is the recipe of a masterpiece. Please leave a like and maybe subscribe, so my next video might reach over 10 views. I'm out.